Hi, it's Max here and welcome to a new video on how to make a masculine birthday card. Today's card is for a very good friend of mine who is working as a craftsman. So here you see me cutting a piece of brown wrapping paper to be slightly smaller than a standard card. I will do some things today that may appear a little bit unusual to you, so don't be shocked to see me crumbling the paper now. I just want to give it the look of a used crafts paper from a repair shop. And to even increase this look, I will now use some stamps from Stampin Up. This is the stamp set Gorgeous Grunge, and you will see those 3 stamps. The color that I use is Crumb Cake, also from Stampin Up. Okay, so now I add the big splashes from this stamp set, and you will see me using the smaller ones right in a moment. You will find a full list of the supplies I use down in the description box below this video. And now to give it the final touch, I added some scratches. The whole thing should be the background of the card, so it's always good not to overload it. So now it's time to do some die cutting, and therefore I used the Gadget gears as well as the mini gear set from the Tim Holtz collection. I cut it out of gold and silver cardstock by using my Big Shot Pro, but surely you can use any kind of machine that is out there. Even if I cut out more gears, I finally decided to only use those 3. To also bring this into the old and used look as we created it on the background paper, I used another stamp set, but this time by Tim Holtz. It's called Bitty Grunge, and as you can see, I used the scratch pattern to apply onto the gears. You can see me applying the stamp without an acrylic block, just to give it a more natural look. And finally I colored the edges with the mini blending tool by Ranger. As you saw, we want to create a shaker card, and therefore we take the biggest of the gears and simply cut out the interior. I'm using a craft knife for this. Gently cut out all of the connections to the outside ring so that you finally end up with a window. Then I took a piece of transparency and simply marked the outside edges of the ring with my craft knife, and afterwards simply cutting it out with my scissors. After a final check and cutting off the excess, I simply glued the transparency onto the backside of the gear with some glossy accents. So our window is done and we can put it aside. To create the shaker window, we now need some foam tape to put on the backside of the window. I cut the foam tape in half and just took the little stripes and put some tiny little cuts from one side, but not completely through to the other side, so that the whole part stays together. I'm doing this because it's much easier afterwards to put the tape around the circle. And you will see this in a minute. So now you can see, while the cuts perfectly spread out the circle, the inner side of the tape still is one line and has no holes in it. If you have several smaller pieces like I do, just be sure to fill all the gaps when you come to the end. Now peel off the protective sheet from the back side of the foam tape and start with the next layer. As you know, we want to put some screws into the window, which means that it needs to pop up a little bit higher than a usual shaker window would. So as you can see, I ended up in 3 layers of foam tape, and this is now the perfect height to put the screws into the window just for a test. So here's the little test with the card base on the back, just to see if the screws still move inside the window. So now that we have created all of the bits and pieces of our card, it's time to put everything together. Because the paper is now so smooth, you need to be careful to put it onto your card base. Just attach it with the corners and then just dab it slightly onto the card base. Finally, I press the paper onto the card base with a brayer, just to preserve all the wrinkles that we created before. I took some of the screws out and then peeled off the cover paper of the foam tape and put the gear window onto the card base. Even if you can see some of the screws sticking to the top of the gear, I can assure you that due to the fact that they are so heavy, they will fall down. As you know, we have 3 levels of foam tape on the big gear window, and this enables us to adhere the other 2 gears on different levels. So now you can see me cut tiny pieces of foam tape and put it onto the back of the smaller gears. The smallest gear will only have 1 level of foam tape, and the second largest will have 2 levels of foam tape. And as you can see, this was really difficult to cut and sticking it onto the gear. But finally I managed, and so you can see me peeling off the cover sheet from the foam tape and adhering the gears onto the card. Unfortunately, I do not have a stamp for the sentiment that I envisaged. So I printed one on white cardstock. The font that I was using is called Blackout. To bring the little piece of cardstock into shape, I cut the edges with my corner chomper and put some little holes into each corner with my crocodile. The idea is now to make the panel look as if it was nailed onto the card. Therefore I used some simple brads, and instead of splitting the flaps, I just bent them into one direction. To fix the flaps and make them stay where they should stay, I again used some foam tape. And to bring everything together, I sponged the edges of the panel with my mini tool and the color that we used before, which is called Crumb Cake. And while adhering the panel to the card base, I felt that there was missing something on top of the card. So I decided to take a piece of package band just to stay in the style of the card and wrap it around the top of the card and just fix it with a bow. So this was the card for today. I hope you had fun and got inspired. If you liked what you see, it would be great if you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and hope to see you soon.